Welcome back to Chrono Tales, where reality bends and nightmares take root in the waking world. I'm your host, and tonight's tale will make you question the very nature of sleep itself. This is the story of The Dream That Won't End. They say we spend a third of our lives asleep, drifting through landscapes that exist only in our minds. But what happens when those landscapes refuse to let us go? What happens when the dream becomes more real than reality itself? Dr. Sarah Chen had always been a light sleeper, but the insomnia that began in March of 2023 was different. It wasn't the usual stress of her psychiatric practice or the weight of her patients' troubled minds keeping her awake. This was something else entirely. For 3 weeks, Sarah managed only fragments of sleep, 20 minutes here, an hour there. Her colleagues noticed the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly when she held her morning coffee.
Sarah, you look terrible. When's the last time you got a full night's sleep?
I'm fine, Miguel. Just a rough patch. It'll pass.
You're a psychiatrist, not a superhero. Maybe you should take your own advice and see someone.
But Sarah was stubborn. She increased her caffeine intake, started taking melatonin, tried meditation apps, and even considered prescription sleep aids. Nothing worked. Every time she closed her eyes, she would drift off for mere minutes before jolting awake with a feeling of overwhelming dread. On the 22nd night of her insomnia, exhaustion finally won. Sarah fell into the deepest sleep she'd experienced in weeks. And that's when she found herself standing in the hospital corridor. The corridor was endless, stretching in both directions as far as she could see. The walls were painted that particular shade of institutional green that existed only in hospitals and government buildings. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in harsh, cold illumination. Sarah looked down and realized she was wearing her white coat, a stethoscope draped around her neck. She was at work, but this wasn't her hospital. The layout was wrong, the colors too bright, the silence too complete.
Hello? Is anyone there?
She began walking down the corridor, her footsteps echoing loudly in the empty space. The doors on either side were all closed, each one bearing a patient's name in neat black lettering. But as she looked closer, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. Every door bore the same name, Sarah Chen. Sarah tried the first door handle. It turned easily, revealing a hospital room identical to every other hospital room she'd ever seen, except for one detail. The bed was occupied by herself. The Sarah in the bed was asleep, connected to various monitors and IV drips. Her face was peaceful, younger somehow, as if she were dreaming pleasant dreams.
What is this? What's happening to me?
The next room contained another version of herself, this one sitting up in bed, reading a medical journal. When Dr. Sarah entered, Bed Sarah looked up and smiled.
Oh good, you're here. I've been waiting for you to make rounds. This is impossible, I'm dreaming. This has to be a dream. Of course it's a dream. But doesn't make it less real, does it? You should know that, doctor. After all, how many of your patients have told you their nightmares feel more real than their waking lives?
Sarah backed out of the room and tried the next door. This Sarah was older, her hair streaked with gray, her face lined with years of worry.
You're just starting to understand, aren't you? This is where we live now, all of us. All the versions of you that never quite made it back to the waking world. I want to wake up. How do I wake up? Wake up, my dear, you've been asleep for 3 days.
Sarah ran from the room, down the endless corridor, trying door after door. Each room contained another version of herself. Some sleeping, some awake, some engaged in conversations with invisible visitors. Some appeared to be decades older. Others looked like her teenage self.
You can't leave. This is home now. The real world moved on without you. Stay with us.
At the end of the corridor, Sarah found a nurse's station. Behind the desk sat another version of herself, this one wearing scrubs instead of a white coat.
Can I help you, Dr. Chen? I need to get out of here. I need to wake up. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, your body is in room 247. You've been in a coma for 3 days. This is your mind's way of coping with the trauma. What trauma? What happened to me? The car accident, doctor. Don't you remember?
The memory hit Sarah like a physical blow. She had been driving home from the hospital after a particularly difficult day. A patient had attempted suicide, and Sarah had spent hours talking him down from the ledge of his despair. She remembered being tired, so very tired. Her eyelids had grown heavy as she waited at a red light. Just for a moment, she had closed her eyes.
The intersection of Pine and 4th Street. You ran the red light. The other driver is fine, but you. You hit your head pretty hard when your car flipped. So this is all, what? A coma dream. Not just any dream. This is the place where minds go when they can't face returning to consciousness. Some people call it limbo. Others call it purgatory. I call it the waiting room.
Sarah turned to find all the other versions of herself gathering around the nurse's station. Young Sarah, old Sarah, sleeping Sarah, working Sarah, dozens of iterations of her own consciousness, all staring at her with expectant eyes.
The question now is whether you want to stay with us or go back to that world of exhaustion and responsibility. Here, you never have to worry about patients who don't get better. You never have to make life or death decisions. You never have to carry the weight of other people's pain. Here, you can rest forever. No more insomnia, no more stress, no more wondering if you're making the right choices.
It was tempting. Sarah had to admit that. The endless corridor was peaceful in its own way, and the other Sarahs seemed content with their existence. She could stay here, in this place between sleeping and waking, and never have to face the real world again.
But what about my patients? What about the people who depend on me? They'll find other doctors. The world always moves on. And my family, my friends? They'll grieve and then heal. That's what people do.
Sarah looked around at all the versions of herself, past, present, and potential futures. They were all real in their own way, all part of who she was and who she could become. But they were also all trapped.
You're all me, aren't you? Every fear, every doubt, every part of myself that I've tried to hide or overcome. Yes, we are you. And you are us. Then you know what I have to choose. You know I can't stay here no matter how peaceful it seems.
Sarah walked back down the corridor, but this time she wasn't looking for an exit. She was looking for a specific room, room 247, where her real body lay unconscious in the real world. She found it at the very end of the corridor, past all the other rooms. The door was different from the others, heavier, made of dark wood instead of institutional metal. Her name was carved into it in elegant script rather than printed on a placard. Inside, Sarah saw herself as she really was. Pale, bruised, connected to machines that monitored her vital signs. Her real body looked small and fragile in the hospital bed.
Sarah? Sarah, can you hear me? The doctors say you might be able to hear us.
The voice belonged to her sister, Lisa. Sarah could see her now, sitting beside the bed, holding her unconscious hand.
Everyone's been so worried. Your patients keep asking about you. Mrs. Rodriguez says she'll wait as long as it takes for you to come back. She trusts you, Sarah. We all do.
One by one, the other versions of Sarah entered the room. They stood around the bed, looking down at their shared physical form.
Are you sure about this? It's going to be hard. The recovery, the questions, the fear of driving again. And the nightmares. Oh, Sarah, the nightmares that will come from this place. You could stay with us. We could all stay together, safe in this endless dream.
Sarah looked at each version of herself, understanding now that they represented every reason she had for wanting to escape her life. The exhaustion, the weight of responsibility, the fear of failure, the desire for peace.
I know you're all part of me, and I'm not going to abandon you, but we don't belong here. We belong in the world, messy and difficult as it is. What if you can't wake up? What if this choice traps you somewhere between sleeping and waking forever? Then that's a risk I have to take. My patients need me. My family needs me, and maybe I need them too.
Sarah reached out and touched her own sleeping face. The moment her dream hand made contact with her real body, the hospital corridor began to fade. The other Sarahs smiled and waved as they dissolved into mist.
Goodbye. Be brave. Remember us.
The last thing Sarah heard before waking was the sound of her own heart monitor, its steady beeping growing louder and more insistent until...
Sarah. Oh my God, she's awake. Nurse. Doctor. She's awake.
Sarah opened her eyes to bright hospital lights and the concerned faces of doctors and nurses. But most importantly, She saw Lisa's tear-streaked face smiling down at her.
How long was I?
3 days, Sarah? You gave us quite a scare.
It felt like forever.
As Sarah recovered over the following weeks, she sometimes wondered about the other versions of herself she'd left behind in that endless corridor. Were they still there, waiting for the next dreamer who couldn't find their way back to the waking world? But whenever the nightmares came, and they did come, Sarah remembered the choice she had made. She had chosen the difficult, beautiful, imperfect world of the living over the peaceful prison of eternal sleep. And every morning when she woke up, Sarah Chen smiled. Because waking up, she had learned, was always a choice worth making. That concludes tonight's journey into the realm between sleeping and waking. Remember, sometimes the dreams that feel most real are the ones we must fight hardest to leave behind. Sweet dreams, and may you always find your way back to the morning light.